international enough. So I'll kick us out here. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kurt, do you want to lead us in the four-way test?
I don't know if I remember.
All
All right, the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
Is it the truth?
Second,
Is it fair to all concerned?
third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
All right, welcome everybody. So, it looks like we have probably the most guests in any meeting I've ever seen in the whole 1 year I've been in Rotary. So Kelly, do you want to introduce your guests?
My guests, yes, hold on. I'm still
Any
getting
others
required.
that have any guests?
I'm so sorry. Yes, those are for you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. I have 3 guests with me today. I have my newest coworker, Risha. Go ahead and say your last name because I'm Richkowski. So she is now going to be working in the insurance and assisting Rick Elton. And I've got
What?
Jill Mills.
Just American.
I'm bad with last names. And Jill's fairly
Medium.
new to the area, about a year and a half.
Thank you.
And Jessica Earhart, Master of None Artistry, wonderful artists here local. So she's also retired Army.
Yes,
And Alistair, I said.
and Alistair. I would have left him at home, but it's my husband's day to work.
Okay, well, welcome.
We have a couple of other guests.
Yeah.
Donald and Dawn Woods.
Yep.
That we met at Superstars, when we were presented at Superstars. And they've been meeting to come every week, like a lot of us do, and just today was the day.
Awesome.
Welcome. Well, honestly, that kind of energy in membership is really exciting. Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay, we're in the corner.
Oh, yeah. Please introduce yourselves.
We're Greg and Renee Snyder. I dealt with Kelly a couple times at the Beautiful Spearfish and that. Then I saw the post that the gentleman was going to be speaking. We're really interested and just want to come learn about everything.
Awesome.
Wonderful.
Well,
Welcome.
We live in Spearfish.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, like I was saying, the increase in membership and increase in interest has been really exciting. So hoping we can keep going and outgrow this room. Maybe get into a convention room sometime. I don't know. So yeah, if you are interested in membership, we can chat afterwards. There's a little bit of prerequisites that are involved, but Rotary is definitely a very community-minded organization, and that's what's really important. And I think you might have found a home. So, Kay's here. You're good. You're good. Right here. I see you right over here. All right. So, a couple housekeeping notes before we get into the drawing of the speaker. So the 6th grade essay contest of the Rotary 4-way test, which is over there. Kurt, maybe you can assist. I'm going to re-engage with the teachers since the storm and the holidays. We have our judges, but we do need to make a little traction on that because that'll be finalized in April, and then we'll have them here to present their essays and award, their prize money, and that first place winner will go on to the district level and so on and so forth. So if you're interested in learning more, getting involved, just let me know. I don't think we have any rather great events in the near future. So if you're new here, that's one of our fundraising revenue sources is doing rod and drapes for like conventions when we set up the booths. So it's all volunteer labor. They pay us, and that money goes back into the community. So it's been a very effective fundraising tool. It's one of our largest sources of funds. So other than that, are there any other major announcements anybody wants to put out? Yeah.
Right. As most of you know, I wear many different hats. Today I'm going to wear the Ski for Life hat. Our annual winter event is coming up. It'll be orientation orientation starts on the 22nd of January, and then we'll go through Thursday our banquet. I've got raffle tickets. You do not have to be present to win. A book of 10 is $10, or they're one apiece. I'm gonna come back next week and try to get these, but if anybody would like to buy any of these, if you win $500. They'll call you and they'll let you know, so.
What does it benefit? What's that for?
Black Hills Regional Ski for Life. So, we've been in operation for 43 years, I think. And we take individuals who are blind, mobility impaired, and visually impaired, downhill skiing, cross-country skiing, snowmobiling, and snowshoeing. So,
Do you guys have a silent auction or anything for that?
no, we don't.
Well, I thought I'd ask because I don't mind donating stuff for stuff like that.
You know, Hobo's Healing Hearts coming up with a live auction.
Let me know. Let me know.
Let me just change that. So, yes.
So, immediately after the meeting at the food pantry, we have a check presentation to the food pantry for the club donation / District 5610 donation. And Pastor Randy and Nicole and Stacy and Donald had all agreed to go. We had plenty of people to go, I don't know. But I can write out the check, but I can go, if anybody else wants to go instead of me, please go get the picture. I've been in so many Rotary pictures. Or I'd be happy to go, so just let me know. And don't forget, right after Rotary, zip over to the food pantry. If you don't know where it is, I'll tell you.
Just make sure whoever takes the picture gets it back to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kelly heads up our Facebook page, a couple of those and stuff like that. So, yeah, so New Year, kind of, it's really exciting. We just came off of a really fun Christmas party where we had district governor, we inducted 5 new members, which was really exciting. So yeah, I think this year may be one of the best years we have. We can keep this momentum going. So with that, I don't think there's anything else. You want to do the beat driving?
Now, how am I keeping money?
Okay. So if you paid $1 out there, we do a raffle drawing every week, and if you get drawn, pull a bead that has one distinct color out of the rest, and that's how you win the raffle. It generally doesn't happen. The odds are against it.
We're at $92, so because they're going up, it's climbing rather quickly because there's 35 beads. Usually we're over 100 when we're about down to 10 or so. So it's dropping up pretty quick. You pick yours. Pick to see who gets to do the luck. And the color of the bead is yellow, so you have to pick a yellow.
Call your
bead.
own number, JJ.
Yeah. You wouldn't be the first nor the last.
That's exactly why I didn't do it.
Awesome.
He's anymore for something like this. Okay, the number I see here is 420-4205.
That's
Oh no, and you're gonna try to get the yellow bead.
There's a yellow bead in here. There's 30.
Don't get it.
There's 35. So if you get the yellow bead, you get $92.
Oh my gosh!
Rolling your
I have not
membership.
seen that in years since I've been involved.
My
So it was the very last meeting.
There's a service fee on that, right, Jerome?
I know, that's what
Take two. Like everything. What a hoot.
Yes.
Keep
Yeah,
some.
keep
And we're coming with happy now, so tell what happy.
City of Denver donations.
You want to do
Special monetary.
All right.
Such a joyous.
So I guess there is no secondary
Presenter
prize,
today.
right? Is that how that works?
All right. Well, the second part is you get to throw in $1.
Right, happy dollar.
Talk about what you're happy about. And I'll do my first one. I'm going to throw in 5. And I'm going to talk about why I'm happy to living in the Black Hills. I was just over in Sioux Falls to see my son's new house that he bought. and they had 18 inches of snow. And I said, well, that ain't bad, we had 44 feet some places or higher. I said, but ours is all gone. Theirs will probably still be there in the spring. And when you're in these residential areas, you could just barely fit your cars in between this parking. So, and as we're coming back, take a little picture, and we left there, it was 21, but when we were going there, we left here, it was 32, we got there, it was 2 degrees. So it was like, not coming back, we took a picture of our temperature gauge, and it was 52 or 55 when we were coming back, right about the middle of the state. It's like, here, you guys can just stay over there, we're coming back to the good parts. I'll start back here.
I am happy that my daughter is starting her last semester of college and possibly has a job lined up in her profession. So I'm very
Awesome.
so awesome.
I am happy for the beautiful weather for horseback riding, that my horse has tremendous all-wheel drive in the snow. Shut the phone.
I am happy to be back in the hills. We moved away to central Illinois for quite some time, and I'm happy to be back and working for Midwest and surrounded by really awesome people. So, just be back.
I'm happy to join this club again today. I'm a new member, as you know, and it's really cool to see so many guests in this club. It's obviously a club with vitality, so awesome.
I'm happy because my daughter just turned 3 on Monday, and she learned how to ride a bike.
Now,
Oh, wow.
cool, can't do that.
I'm happy we have such a huge turnout, and we've got 7 people on Zoom, and we've never had more than 2 people on Zoom at any point in time, so I'm excited.
Full house.
Happy for the weather, and while I'm a BHSU alum and follow them more closely, I am very happy that SDSU beat.
Yes.
Wow, that's so good. For sure.
Enjoying this lovely weather.
I'll throw it $1. Tell me what you're happy about. I got $1 for you.
I'm happy for, I had a great engagement with some folks last night about the Monument Health Foundation and Spearfish expansion, and that was really exciting. People's enthusiasm of what's happening in Spearfish is great, as it is here too.
Awesome, awesome.
Fun.
So this last weekend, I was fortunate to go down to Dallas for the Dallas Safari Club Expo, and while I was down there, I was working the booth, and I met Robert Kiyosaki. He's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and some of you guys probably read that book, and it's pretty influential in a lot of people's lives, and that was like a big deal for me, because he was just walking around, and he doesn't exactly look like he does on his cover of his book anymore. I recognized him. I said, Robert, come over here. So we had a nice little conversation for about 5 minutes. And
cool.
Next time I'm down in Maricopa County, I'll go and just drop in and say hi to him. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was back also from back east, and when they say the interstate's closed, you just get behind a big line of trucks and you need to stay right there.
All right through, right?
1, because I was gone a little bit. 2, I have a brand new baby granddaughter who was born December 20th.
I'm happy it's the start of 2023.
I'm happy to have such a nice crowd, and I'm looking forward to hearing JJ speak.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to report that Ken's surgery went remarkably well, but I have renewed respect for caregivers.
Is he ornery?
Oh, he's really very, very good.
Oh, he is? Oh.
But it's just,
Yeah.
you know, the icing and putting the things
shoot.
on, it's like 24 hours for about another week, but he's doing well.
That's good.
Yes, you can have some water. Hi, I'm happy to be tolerating this.
Exhausting.
He's exhausting. I'm happy to be accepted into my first event for 2023, which is supposed to be a big one in Miles City, Montana. It's the first really big event that I've been accepted into, and I'm happy to connect with more people in the community to see what I can do just outreaching into Spearfish and surrounding communities.
I think I can speak for both of us on this. We've been in Spearfish for 2 years now, and I think we're happy about a lot of things. A great deal, but I think mostly meeting the most nicest, most genuine people that we've ever come across. Where we've been on all our travels, not only meeting them, but interacting as we are here with various other events and things. Thank you.
If you were here last week, I'll say it again because it's a huge deal to my family. Well, my future in-laws family. So my future mother-in-law is the Bowdoin women's varsity rugby coach in Maine, and she just won her 3rd consecutive national title.
Oh my gosh.
And this Saturday she'll be receiving the very first inaugural Lifetime Achievement Award. And so I surprised Jessica, because airline tickets are what they are right now, she wasn't anticipating going, and I surprised her with the trip there. So she leaves Friday and comes back Sunday, and gets to meet up with her younger sister and her parents, and gets to experience that. It's once in a lifetime thing. So I was like, what's the cost of that?
Yeah,
So that's what. Alright, so JJ Kent is our speaker today, very recent new member of the Christmas party. Sort of dove head first into what Rotary is about. I believe the Facebook and Instagram all is kind of summed up a short version of his experience, but he was brought up with a lot of Lakota ancestors and brought up in their culture, and is an internationally and nationally renowned speaker on their history and culture. So one, we're extremely lucky to have him in the club. Two, extremely lucky that he's willing to share that knowledge with us. So I'm not going to take up any more of his time. So JJ Kent.
We'll just move the camera so that people on the can see. Wherever you want to go. Wherever you want to go, we'll point the camera. Yep.
Well, it's nice to squeeze over here. Alright, okay. Well, we're, meter seating. Okay. Olemme takeape mie chasoku stema tapio. Iuskawan sian kelo na vetua stereo. And for the benefit of those of you who have absolutely no idea what I just said, I was speaking in the language of my mother's ancestors, the Oglala Lakota people. I want to say a very special thank you to Tony and all the other officers and board members for allowing me this privilege to be here today and share a little bit of my culture with all of you. As you may have read, my father was Caucasian, but my mom was full-blood Oglala Lakota, born and raised on the Pine Ridge Reservation, just a little bit to the southeast of us here. And my parents separated when I was quite young, and I had the privilege of being raised by my mom and her side of the family. And so a lot of my uncles and other elders were very traditional people, and they took me under their wing and shared their wisdom and knowledge with me, which I will always feel very grateful for. One of the most frequent misunderstandings that I have amongst a lot of people, when I say the term Lakota, sometimes people say, well, is that part of the Sioux? Actually, that is the Sioux. Many people are more familiar with that term Sioux. I'm sure you've probably all heard that term at one time or another. But the actual term Sioux is not the original name of our people. That name was
acquired from the French fur trappers back in the early 1800s, even late 1700s, because they were the very first European people to have contact with the Lakota people back in those days. And if you look how that name is spelled, S-I-O-U-X, it's French. So the term Sioux is actually not the original name, but that's where that came from. And many of those same French fur trappers would often marry Lakota women and have children with them and raise families and become members of the community, be adopted by the tribe, you know, and learn the customs and the language, and often live out the remainder of their lives as members of the community that way. And which, by the way, is also one of the main concepts that attracted me to want to become a member of Rotary, is that sense of community, because that's something that's a very, very integral part of Lakota culture, that sense of community. We call it Chioshpa, or extended family. You know, it begins, of course, with your immediate family, but then it extends all the way out into the whole community. So we think of the whole entire community as our extended family. So that's one of the reasons why I really felt drawn to become a Rotarian. And just briefly on a slightly different note, I want to also mention that Stacy, as you all know, she is my fiance now. Set a date for our wedding for May 20th, so if you want to jot that down. We'd love to have all of our fellow Rotarians to be in attendance. We're going to be holding that out here at the Western Heritage Center. So mark that down on your calendar, May 20th. That's when we plan to make it official. So, anyway, again, the Lakota people, that's the part of my, you know, I'm not full blood obviously, but that's the part of my heritage that I identify with, and I grew up with that. And one of the things that I thought I'd share with all of you today that also helped convince me that I wanted to really be a part of Rotary was the part of our spiritual philosophy that we call the 7 spiritual laws of the Lakota, because I think as I share these things with you, you'll see that how they tie in with the 7 principles that Rotary also believes in. There's a story. One of the probably the most iconic symbol of our whole spiritual belief system is the sacred pipe. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard the term peace pipe just about all your life, right? Well, that's actually incorrect terminology. We do not call it a peace pipe. But the pipe is a very sacred and holy instrument of prayer. And another one of the most frequently asked questions I get from so many people as I've traveled, is it really marijuana you Indian people smoking in peace pipes? No, we don't. We would never ever do such a thing with the sacred pipe, because the pipe, like I said, it's a very sacred and holy instrument of prayer. We offer the pipe when we need to raise our voices to the Great Spirit. Another thing that I often get asked by many people is, well, what God is it you Indian people pray to? Same one you do. There's only one. And Lakota people have understood this since the beginning of time. But there's a story that goes with the coming of the sacred pipe that I wanted to be able to share with all of you today, if I may. And like I said, the pipe is the most iconic symbol of our spirituality. And as it was told to me many times growing up by my elders, there was a time long ago, there was a great famine. The buffalo were very scarce, and people were starving. All the tribes were at war with each other, and there was a lot of suffering and death. So the people were crying out, asking the Great Spirit for help. Well, one day the chief had asked these 2 young men to go out in search of the buffalo and try to find some food to feed the people. And because the buffalo were so scarce at this time, these two young men had to travel much, much farther away from the camp than they normally did to hunt. And so there they were, way far out on the prairie there, nothing to be seen from horizon to horizon. And they noticed a hill in the distance. They thought perhaps if they could reach the top of this hill, this would give them a better vantage point from which they might be able to see something. And when they did reach the top of this hill, they did see something approaching them from out of the east. And it was very mysterious because it was surrounded by a beautiful white light. And they stood there watching as this thing approached them. And when it finally came close enough for them to realize what it was a little baby buffalo calf. And it was pure white. They continued watching as this little buffalo calf came towards them, and it all of a sudden magically transformed into a very beautiful woman. And she was carrying a bundle on her back. Now, this woman was extremely beautiful. She had long, flowing black hair. She was dressed in a beautiful white buckskin dress. And because she was so beautiful, one of these young men began to have, shall we say, some less than honorable thoughts pertaining to some things he wished to do with this woman. And he spoke of this to the other young man that was with him there. But the other young man had been raised very well by his elders and family, and he had good morals and good principles, and so he tried to warn the first young man. He said, no, don't do these things that you're speaking of, because surely you can see that this is no ordinary woman. This woman is obviously a wakha. The word wakha in Lakota language means holy or sacred. But the woman herself, she could hear his thoughts. She could read his mind. So she spoke to this first young man, and she said, now, if this is what is truly within your heart, if this is what you desire, then come closer. So the young man approached her, and as he was just about ready to reach out and take hold of her, all of a sudden there was a very thick cloud that descended down from out of the sky and completely enveloped the two of them. It was so thick you couldn't see through it. And when it finally lifted up again, there was only just the woman left standing there. And all that remained of this young man were some bones lying at her feet. Now, upon seeing this, the other young man obviously became frightened, as you can imagine. But the woman spoke to him, and she said, now, what has happened here to your companion is that he was consumed by his lust and his greed and his ignorance. But now I want you to go back to your village and tell your people that I am coming. The Great Spirit has heard their cries for help and has sent me to bring them a very special gift and a message which will help them to be able to have a better way of life. And when you get there, tell your chief to have all the people gather and build a lodge that will be large enough so that everyone can be gathered inside when I come to present them with this gift. So the young man did as he was told, and he hurried back to the camp as quickly as he could, and when he arrived, he told the chief what had happened and what the woman's instructions were. So the chief gathered all the people and had them to build this very large teepee. So a few days later, when the woman came into the camp, everyone was gathered there inside. And she entered the doorway, and she turned to her left, and she went all the way around that circle. So she came back to the door again. Then she walked to the center of the room and stood in front of all the tribal leaders, the spiritual leaders and everything. And she removed the bundle she was carrying, placed it on the ground in front of them, and opened it. And inside of this bundle, there was a pipe, which consisted of a bowl, which had been carved out of a very special type of red stone. And then a stem, which had been carved from the leg bone of a buffalo. She went on to explain that the bowl of the pipe represents the Mother Earth that we live on. It also represents the female half of the circle of life. Then the stem of the pipe represents all the living things that live upon the earth, as well as the male half of that circle. So that when those two items are joined together, the circle of life is complete. Now on the side of the bowl of the pipe, there were 7 circles. One large one with 6 smaller ones inscribed in the center. And she went on to explain that this represented the message she had been sent to give to the people. And this message consisted of some principles or teachings which have since come to be known as the 7 spiritual laws of the Lakota people, and it's what forms the foundation for our whole entire belief system. The first one she went on to explain, this one is called Oglala. This one means to walk quietly, practice humility. The second one, this one is called Oglala, and that one means to have compassion and love for all of the people you see around you. The third one, this one is called Wowokia. This one means to be helpful to each other without waiting to be asked. If you see someone who's struggling and having a hard time, you don't stand there waiting for them to say, hey, can you come give me a hand over here? You just go ahead and jump in and try to help out and do whatever you can to lift them back up and get them on their feet again. Then the fourth one, this one is called Wowayunia. That one means to have respect for all things in creation. Because if it was created by the hand of God, it is worthy of our respect. And that not only includes everything we see around us every day, it also means to have respect for yourself. You're a beautiful creation of God, the same as everything that exists in this universe. And that means we've been given a beautiful body to be a home for our spirit while we walk through this life. And we should always seek to honor that gift and do things such as protecting our health. Don't desecrate ourselves with things like drugs and alcohol. Respect yourself. This leads into the fifth one, which is the one we regard as being the most important for our future generations, our children and our grandchildren, like this little one here. Because they're always looking to us for their teaching. They say our lives are a child's textbook. So we need to set that good example for them so they have a good positive role model to learn from. And this fifth law, this one's called Wokchonte, which means to walk with a good attitude. Don't walk around carrying a chip on your shoulder, because that's what our children are going to learn from us if we conduct ourselves that way. That carries into the sixth law, which can sometimes be very difficult for many of us to observe and practice, myself included, because I'm just as human as anyone else. And this one is called Wowaktojan, which means to practice forgiveness. That can be a tough one sometimes. People often say things that hurt our feelings or do some type of injustice to us, which then, if we allow those hurt feelings to stay in here and fester, they can become bitterness and anger. Maybe for some of us even seeking to get revenge. Hit them back in some way, even the score. But they say it's really in your own best interest to just forgive them and just let it go. We say ayista. Ayista means just let it go. Don't carry that in here, because if you harbor that bitterness in here, you're only going to shorten your own life. It'll make you sick. So forgive them and just let it go. Finally, the seventh law the lady shared with us, this one is called Wopila. And a Wopila means to practice thanksgiving. Now, when I say that word, oftentimes people think of that day in November where we sit at the table with our family and we have turkey and pumpkin pie and all those good things to eat. But really and truly, Thanksgiving should be a daily practice every day of your life. Take just a few moments when you first wake up in the morning, when your feet first hit the floor, when you get out of bed, and just lift your hand and say, thank you, Grandfather. Thank you for all the wonderful blessings you have shared with me. Thank you for the breath of life that you place here inside me so that I can be of service to my relatives. Thank you for my home and my family and my friends and all the other many wonderful blessings that you get to enjoy every day, that the Great Spirit has shared with all of you. And I promise you, if you make a daily practice of doing those things, you'll be amazed at how much better the rest of your day will go for you by just taking a few moments to say thank you to the Creator. And these teachings, these principles that I just shared with you from this story is what forms the foundation for the entire Lakota belief system that we have. And I might also mention to all of you that the story that I've just shared with you is a true story. You see, when the woman came and brought us that sacred pipe, and we call her Teskawin, the white buffalo calf woman. When she brought us that pipe and she shared all those things with us, she stayed for a few days to help teach all the people all those things. And then just before she prepared to leave and go back to the spirit world, she took that pipe, which she brought with her, and she placed it into the care of the spiritual leader of the Lakota people at that time, who was a man whose name was Standing Hollow Horn. And we still have that pipe. It still exists to this day. You see, after she placed it in his care, it has been passed down within the same family for 20 generations. And we still have that pipe to this very day as I speak to you now. So I thank you for letting me share that story with you about the coming of the sacred pipe. We can maybe get into how it came to be called the peace pipe at another time. Have a little bit more time. That term didn't come from us. So yeah, that's another story. But yeah, I don't know how much time I really have here today, but hopefully I can have further opportunities in the future to share more of the Lakota culture with all of you, especially since where we are right here in Spearfish. This was all Lakota country at one time, many years ago. And of course we have the Lakota, the Oglala Lakota people just a little bit to the southeast of us on Pine Ridge. Here in the state of South Dakota, there are 9 Indian reservations, and they're all Lakota reservations. You see, the Lakota Nation it was such a large group of people that is divided into 7 different bands or sub-tribes, and the Oglala band being the closest one to our location here. Some of the names from our history that you may have heard before, Crazy Horse was Oglala Lakota. So I come from the same band as Crazy Horse. And also another name from our history was Chief Red Cloud. He was a principal chief of the Oglalas. I'm sure every one of you probably heard the name Sitting Bull. Now Sitting Bull was certainly a Lakota, but he was not from the Oglala band. He was from a different band called Lakota, and he was a holy man. What some people might refer to as a medicine man or a shaman. We don't use those terms at all. When we refer to someone like that, we refer to them as a holy man. But those are just a few names from Lakota history that I thought I'd mention to you while I had the opportunity. So, and again, we don't call ourselves Sioux. Just wanted to help kind of make that differentiation there. Lakota is the real name. But I thank you all so much for allowing me this opportunity to be here with all of you today, and especially to share just a little bit of an introductory to the culture with all of you. Like I said, I hope maybe I can have future opportunities to go a little bit more into detail about a lot of things. And but thank you all very much.
So we have about 15 minutes.
Yeah,
For
everybody's
more
questions.
Q&A.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah.
I'm sure there's
Forgive me, I always try to allow for some questions.
Everybody.
I
know.
Okay, what, yeah, go ahead.
My boyfriend Gavin, he's actually 1/16 Lakota Oglala,
Okay.
and he went to a couple classes at the university, and he learned that Sioux is actually offensive. Is that true?
It is.
It means snake people.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
we're not supposed to use the term Sioux.
That term actually originated from the Ojibwe people in the Great Lakes region right there. And the French fur trappers had contact with them before they did with us, but so that's kind of how that came about.
Yeah.
And that was the S-I-O-U-X spelling was how the French spelled the sound of the name.
Yeah. I thought that was fascinating because I too had used it wrong my whole life. So I appreciate you educating people.
Certainly. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
How does one get their, and I don't want to say it the wrong way, but their Native American name? Like, crazy names, like where does crazy horse come from? Do you have?
I have a
name?
traditional name. My traditional name is Lakota, which in English translates as man with a good voice. I didn't give myself that name.
Who gives it to you? When you get it? Like how does that work?
Usually a child gets their traditional name on their first birthday. You know, from the time they're born until their first birthday, they're just referred to as baby boy or baby girl. Then if the parents wish to have a traditional name for their child, they don't give the name. They go to a spiritual person and ask for a naming ceremony to be performed on the child's first birthday. And then that gives the family a whole year to prepare for that occasion by accumulating stuff. Because they're gonna sponsor what's called a giveaway. And all this stuff is just given out to whoever comes to honor their child as a way of saying thank you for coming to honor our child. They're also gonna sponsor a feast and feed everybody who comes to that occasion there. And then it gives the spiritual person a whole year to go in the ceremony and pray about the name. Because the name ultimately comes from the spirit world. That's in Lakota tradition now. I can't speak for other tribal cultures and traditions. That's another common misconception I still run into sometimes, that people think that all Indian people are the same. That they all speak the same language and they all live in teepees and, you know, and dance around a big bonfire going, woo, woo, woo. We don't do that. No self-respecting Lakota person would ever go around beating themselves in the lips. That's just not gonna happen. So at one time, before European contact, there were more than 1,200 different Indian tribes or nations here in North America. That didn't even include Central America or South America, just North America. And that number's been reduced a lot in the last 500 years. But certainly by no means did they all have exactly the same ways and languages and customs. So I can't speak for other tribal cultures about how they do their naming ceremonies, but that's how we do it in Lakota. Yes, ma'am.
Ihani Watson.
Good morning to you as well.
Is that story available in text? I would really love that.
The story of the white buffalo calf
Yes,
woman and
that
the
really
coming of the pipe.
spoke to me.
You can actually find that if you Google it.
So it's, what is it
Internet,
called?
you can find about anything. Right?
White buffalo?
Yeah, white buffalo calf woman was how that translates. This cow.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
So, JJ, I think I told you, I come from Gordon, Nebraska, which is only 20 miles south of the state border.
Mhm.
And so when you were growing up during the 70s, as a person, as a Lakota who was lighter complected, how was, during the AIM movement, how did that impact you, or what was that like for you?
Oh, I was very active in the AIM movement myself. As far as being full-blooded, it's how you identify with what that part of your heritage. Sure. You know, yeah, it's not based on blood quantum.
Sure. I just didn't know if being a person of lighter complexion, if people didn't know who you were, if that was difficult or, you know, of that nature.
All of, at times it presented some difficulties in some situations I grew up with. But you know, this day and time, it's hard to find anybody who's full-blooded anything. Sure. There's been so much intermarriage, cross cultures and things. They say even Crazy Horse himself had hair about the same color as mine. It was wavy, it wasn't straight, and he had blue eyes.
Wow.
And I don't know specifically if that was why Crazy Horse had blue eyes, but one thing that sometimes happened back in the 1850s, when there was a great influx of European immigrants moving across the plains on the Oregon Trail and on their way to California and Oregon, places like that. Sometimes, and this is something that you probably never hear taught in public schools, unfortunately. Back in those days, a lot of those white families would often have lots of children. You know, 12, 13, 14 children was not uncommon. because they were mostly agricultural people, and they had all these children for, that was their farm hands, you know, help run the farm. Well, when the wagon trains left from St. Louis on their journey out west, you know, those trips were calculated to try to get up and over the Continental Divide before winter. They didn't want to take a chance on being caught up in that high country during the winter months. So along the way, sometimes if one of those children got sick, or really, really sick, it couldn't slow down the whole wagon train. They had to figure out something. So sadly, sometimes, and probably because there were so many children in a lot of those families, they would sometimes take that sick child off out a little distance away from the main body of people, and they would bind that child with ropes, go ahead and lay the child down and cover him up with rocks, and basically leave him there to die, he or she. And so that eventually, when death occurred, you know, predators or scavengers couldn't, you know, desecrate the body. And oftentimes there'd be Native women off out at a distance hiding, watching all this. So then when the wagon train moved on and they got out of sight, those Native women would come and uncover that child, take them back with them to their village, and nurse it back to health and adopt the child on into the family. And of course, then that child would grow on up, a white child, but often would then marry a Native person and start having families, having children. So that's why a lot of Natives, even back at that time, like I said, and they said Crazy Horse was one of them. It had the light brown hair, it was wavy, it wasn't straight, and he had blue eyes. Yeah. So, you know, blood quantum is not really such an issue anymore. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Me again.
Okay.
You play music too, right?
I do.
Are you any gigs coming up, or?
Yeah, not this weekend, but I do have some coming, actually by the end of this month. I'll be right here in this area. The 27th of this month, I'll be just up the road here in Belfouche at the Hitching Post Tap Room.
Nice, yeah.
And then the next day, that's on a Friday, the next day on the 28th, I'll be here in Spearfish at the Sunshine Saloon.
Awesome. And congratulations, you two. It must be awesome to be getting married to a rock star.
I play traditional country music. I'm with a record company in New York called Spirit Wind Records now, currently. But I also record Native American flute music, and have some of that on part of it as well. You can find it on YouTube. I got some videos on YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure. Yes, ma'am.
What is the proper terminology to call Native American without being indigenous?
Well, it often depends on who you're talking to.
Oh, okay.
Some are a little more radical about that than others, but the term Indian is certainly not appropriate.
Right.
It's not politically correct. The term, and this applies to Native tribes up in Canada as well as here too, many of us often prefer the term First Nations people.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because we're the First Nations here. So if you use that terminology, you can't go wrong. You're not gonna offend anybody using that terminology.
So we got about 5 minutes left if we have a quick question.
Okay.
This is probably the start of a whole other speech that you could give and impart upon this, but just with all, in today's time, all the challenges on the reservation, how do we assist in being part of the solution? And I guess what's happening there to bring our peoples together, and also to be part of the solution, to be of help?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up and mentioned that, because you're not the first person that's asked me that very question on numerous occasions, actually. Oftentimes, very well-meaning non-Indian people, you know, want to offer their help and assistance and try to help lift them up out of the state of poverty that so many of them live in. But they approach it from the perspective of, you know, how can we convince the Lakota people to let us show them how to do it the right way? And to a Lakota person, that's a bad way to approach the subject, because it's like, we're still Lakota. We're We're not, that's one thing we fought against was assimilation, you know, into mainstream society for years and years. It kind of brings back some painful memories of what was known as the boarding school era, when Native children were forcibly removed from their homes and families and placed in boarding schools, which was often run by the Catholic Church or the Episcopal Church. And I don't mean any disrespect at all to any of those faith systems. But back in that day, the whole idea was to try to assimilate Native people, and that was kind of an ulterior motive by the U.S. government. The real motive was to be able to eventually do away with the whole reservation system by having all Native people just assimilate into mainstream society. Because if they did that, and they could eliminate the reservation system, can you imagine the billions of dollars that would save the federal budget? Yeah. But you know, many people like yourself there, they want to be able to assist and help people to live a better way of life by helping them to be able to help themselves. But the trick is to try to approach offering that help in a way where it doesn't create any conflicts with their identity as a people, and still showing the respect for the Lakota people as a culture within their own right.
Probably gets with relationship as well.
Oh,
We
yeah.
see so many people that just want to throw money or come and help for a week and then be gone. It really comes back to let's have a relationship with each other.
Sure.
Long term.
Right.
Get to know each other.
There's one thing that you really have to work very hard at is proving your sincerity. Because Lakota people have a tendency to question that sincerity initially, and it takes a long time to gain their trust.
Alright, well, the hour is upon us, so thank you once again. Alright, so if you are a guest today, the club picks up your tab, except for you. You're just $1.95.
What about history?
Yeah, so yes, if you are a guest, we take that on, and we hope to continue to be guests and get involved and maybe become a member, maybe invite other people. I thank JJ immensely. That was incredibly educational. Like, very sad to say that I've never heard that story, and I'm 30 years old, and I grew up here. You know, that's kind of one of the aspects of Rotary that makes it so special, is that you get so many different viewpoints on life, that it draws you to this meeting. And I'm really hoping we can outgrow this room, honestly. I'm hoping we can take over one of the convention rooms.
Yes.
Okay, so, I welcome, if we can get everybody that's a guest, if we can get your email, contacts, if you wanna get involved, there's like a 3-step system to becoming a member, either come to 3 meetings or get involved in a service project, or, you know, if you do, like, I think JJ and Donald both did like all 3 in a week. They're like, alright, yeah, he's probably good. You know, so, if you're interested in that, we can add you to that distribution list. If it fits with your schedule, then, you know, feel free to partake. There's been a lot of, we had a board meeting prior to this about other service projects that we could do on a quarterly basis at a minimum. You know, we donate money, but we also like to be boots on the ground type of an organization. I understand it doesn't fit everybody's schedule, but if we're all on the same sheet of music when it comes to getting involved in the community, we have a very good turnout. And if we grow the club, then, you know, we should just have even more involvement. So I'm excited about it. So, yeah, tip your waiters.